So Canada is having a political plot twist that nobody saw coming. The center is back and it's actually popular. Danielle Smith gets booed by her own party for signing a deal that helps Alberta. David Eby swings so far left that he's ready to fight an agreement he wasn't even invited to. And Pierre Poilievre, well, he's parked on the far right shoulder shouting into the wind. And meanwhile, the most boring word in politics, moderate, is suddenly the hottest ticket in the country.
And that's why Mark Carney is soaring in the polls. While everyone else is busy picking fights, he's doing something wild. He's winning over the giant group of Canadians who don't want Team Red or Team Blue. They want Team Canada.
Yeah. So here's the question at the heart of this. How did the dull, sensible middle become the most powerful force in the country? And why is every politician who ignores it getting smacked in the face by reality?
And if you want proof of just how dramatic this is becoming, look at what happened in Alberta this weekend, because nothing captures the new political reality better than a premier getting roasted by her own biggest fans.
Yep. Here's what happened to Danielle Smith. She just walked into her own party convention and got booed harder than the carbon tax at a Calgary Stampede pancake breakfast.
Yeah, when your own delegates boo you for saying Canada might actually be working, that's a choice, man. She signs the big deal with Mark Carney and then stands in front of the cameras like, we fixed it. We're an energy superpower now. And the very next day, her base treats her like she just endorsed Prime Minister Carney for the UCP leader.
And while Alberta delegates were yelling at their own premier, the rest of Canada is quietly doing something way more dangerous to the far right, moving to the center and getting comfortable there.
Because if there's one thing Donald Trump's open contempt for basic humanity has done, it's proven to a lot of people that the fringe is exactly where those beliefs belong. On the fringe.
And the part that interests us isn't just the booing. It's that this movement doesn't care if anything gets accomplished. They only want to grab hold of their hate and their anger like it's a precious gemstone. It really showed a lot of Canadians exactly what the far right looks like when it's not pretending to be reasonable.
Which brings us to the question, why do you think Smith suddenly looks reasonable and is willing to turn on our own party? Was this who she was actually all along, or is it just survival?
I think we should back up and let's actually walk through it, because the whole saga tells you way more about Canada's future than any speech in a convention hall.
Yeah. Remember earlier this year when Danielle Smith laid out a threat? Change or kill 9 federal laws that are hurting Alberta's energy sector, or we're heading towards a national unity crisis.
9 laws. Environmental rules, a tanker ban, carbon stuff. If it bugged the oil patch, it went on the list.
Well, fast forward to this week and she's in Calgary with Mark Carney signing a new energy accord. Big press conference, lots of smiling. And under that deal, 7 of those 9 bad laws, they got tweaked, carved out, or relaxed for Alberta.
So she goes from Ottawa is strangling us to actually Ottawa and I just cooked up a new plan for Canada's energy future. Now, that is a pretty sharp turn if you ask me.
But then she has to go and sell that to the UCP convention in Edmonton. This is her home crowd. 4,000 people, tickets sold out. This is supposed to be the friendliest room in the entire province for her.
And she knows exactly how touchy this is, because for the first 35 minutes of her Q&A, she hardly mentions the deal at all. She just kind of, circles it.
Until someone finally asks, hey, what about this industrial carbon price that's in the agreement? And you can almost see her shoulders go up.
She answers, look, I told you I wanted 9 laws fixed, and we got 7. This is a clear win, and I hope this shows you Canada is working properly.
And that's when her own people just started booing her. Not a couple of grumbles, but a loud, clear, we don't like this. It's from the same people who elected her.
You could feel the air just go right out of the room, right at that time.
And then it escalates. Later, when some well-known Alberta independence supporter gets up and asks the crowd, how many of you support independence? People stand up. Cheers, standing ovation for the idea of leaving Canada.
And then Smith, she tries to pull it back to reality. She says she supports a sovereign Alberta with a united Canada. And those same people, still standing from their little independence pep rally, start booing her even more.
So you don't need to be a political science degree major to understand that. Smith has spent years training this base to see Ottawa as the enemy. Now she's telling them, actually, I just cut a deal with them and it worked. And they're looking at her like, no way, man. We came here for a fight, not a result.
Now, for a second, put the theatrics aside and look at the substance, because on pure policy, this deal is probably the most serious thing she's ever done.
Yeah, Alberta gets exemptions or adjustments on 7 federal laws. They get a clearer path for projects, they get the tanker restrictions loosened for Alberta exports, and they get a formal role in shaping Canada's energy strategy. Now, you don't have to like Danielle Smith to admit that she got some tangible stuff out of Ottawa.
Now, a quick break before we get any deeper, because today is the last day of our Black Friday sale on our merch store.
If you want to support the show and keep us caffeinated, now is the time. We've got the Maple Mega Detector mugs, who cares, and my personal favorite, Cool in Canada.
They're actually great conversation starters or warnings, depending on who you're talking to.
The links are below, so get them while they're hot.
So let's get back into it, because over in BC, David Eby is looking at this agreement thinking, I'm sorry, you two just signed what over my coastline and you didn't even bother calling me?
And look, he's not wrong to say it. It's his coast, his communities, his partnerships with the First Nations, and fair enough. Pick up the phone and involve the neighbor. We totally get that.
But drawing a hard line in the sand right now, that's risky, because Canada is shifting to the center, and this new political reality doesn't reward people who slam the brakes every time compromise shows up.
Exactly, Dave. Alberta shouldn't be running the province like an oil company shareholder meeting, and BC shouldn't be running their province like it's the Greenpeace headquarters. The country is moving toward practical solutions, not dramatic declarations from either side.
And this could definitely come back to bite Eby. Not because he's wrong about wanting First Nations at the table, definitely not, he's right about that, but because staking out a hard, not on my watch position while the rest of the country inches toward the middle leaves him a bit out on a limb.
Carney's whole nation-building project is built on cooperation, diversification, and taking opportunities where they exist. It's not about purity contest, and it's not theatrical pushback just for the sake of it.
If the political center is where Canadians are heading, and all the data says that, then both the far right and the far left are going to find themselves isolated. Not just punished, but just outside the conversation.
And that's the risk for Eby here. This isn't the moment to plant a flag and wait for the rest of the country to line up behind it. The mood is shifting. People want results, not a turf fight.
If Alberta has to stop pretending that Ottawa is the boogeyman, then BC has to stop pretending that every project is a dystopian nightmare. The center means compromise. Everybody gives a little.
And this isn't the Exxon Valdez era anymore. Carney's entire approach makes one thing obvious. Anything that moves forward has to come with safeguards, real oversight, and of course, Indigenous partnerships built in from day one. The world has learned some hard lessons in the past, and Canada is not operating in the 1990s standards anymore.
And honestly, if something is going to move across the coastline, wouldn't you rather have control over a safe, tightly regulated Canadian corridor than pretending nothing will ever move and then watch it happen somewhere else with lower standards? Listen, our waters don't stay in a neat provincial box. They're connected to the whole world.
Yeah, you can't protect the oceans by refusing to participate in the rules that govern it. You protect it by being in the room, setting the bar higher, and making sure nobody gets away with cutting corners right next door.
Because if Canada is going to position itself as a global energy power and a responsible one, then every province is going to have to play ball in some way. Alberta can't go full scorched earth, and BC can't go full blockade. The country is choosing balance, whether the loudest voices like it or not.
And that's the part I don't think Alberta's UCP party, Poilievre, or honestly even David Eby fully appreciate yet. The ground has shifted. Canadians aren't buying the far-right anger or the far-left ultimatums. They're walking straight down the middle, and they're getting comfortable there. Even Elizabeth May, the only Green Party leader left standing, she voted for the budget. And that tells you that even she understands where the country's mood has moved to.
And that middle isn't some bland, empty space. It's the biggest political force in the country right now. It's where people live who want things to actually work. Not theatrics, not purity, just results.
And that's exactly why Mark Carney landed like a meteor when he stepped into politics. He's not trying to run a revolution from the edges. He's talking to the majority who are tired of watching the country get torn apart by people who treat compromise like it's radioactive.
Yep, the minute he walked into the room, you could feel the temperature change. The shouting got quieter, the panic online started looking a little desperate, and the polls, well, they tell the story nobody in that UCP hall seemed to understand.
Yep, the center isn't just awake, it's leading. And that's why what happened to Danielle Smith last week actually matters on a national level. Because while her base is booing cooperation, Canadians are doing the exact opposite.
The middle is where you find the people who are just trying to get through the week without having their mortgage reset, their kids' school turned into a circus, or their rights yanked away for somebody's talking point.
They're not sitting around thinking, how can I be more extreme today? Most of us don't introduce ourselves by going, hi, I'm Deb, I'm left, or hi, I'm Dave, I'm right. We just want the country to run properly, fairly, and with some basic decency.
And Carney has stepped into that space. He's not asking people to join a political church. He's saying, here's the situation, here's the math, here's what we need to do to keep Canada safe, secure, and relevant.
And we want a Canada that's open and welcoming. We want leaders who will stand up for human rights. We also want them to understand how trade works, how interest rates work, how energy exports work. It shouldn't be radical to ask for both empathy and competence, should it?
No, it shouldn't. And here's the fun part. The numbers actually back this up. This isn't just us riffing on a couch here.
No, Nanos has been tracking this every week. Right now, the Liberals under Carney are sitting at around 42%. The Conservatives are around 37%. So that's about a 5-point lead. 4 weeks ago, it was basically a dead heat. So a lot has changed.
It certainly has. And over on the preferred prime minister front, the gap is massive. Carney's lead over Poilievre is something like 27 percentage points. It's not even close. 52.6% to 25.9%.
Which brings us to Pierre Poilievre, my favorite person. This is why his megalite project is in trouble, even if his base doesn't see it yet.
Not because he's too quiet, because we all know he's clearly not that, but because he's selling permanent outrage in a country that's getting tired of being constantly wound up.
Yeah, you can't keep telling people the country is broken, the media is evil, and public servants are corrupt while everyone's out to get you, and then expect them to turn around and trust you to handle something as delicate as a trade war with the most unhinged man on the planet.
Especially when the guy from across from you, Carney, actually knows how bond markets and energy contracts work.
When someone is offering stability, competence, and a sense of national purpose, the everything is ruined routine, it starts to look pretty thin, dude.
That's why you can say Carney has a very high approval and people just nod because, of course. And that's why Poilievre's whole career, which has been about tearing things down, suddenly looks like a bad long-term bet.
Indeed.
And you can always tell when that shift is happening, right? Because the noise machine goes into overdrive. Poilievre's pushing videos faster than a crypto bro after a market dip, which tells you exactly how calm he's feeling about all of this.
Oh, we're seeing it all now. We're seeing endless disinformation stream on social media about family values, bizarre outrage over random issues that barely touch anyone's life. People like Jamil Javani doing long lectures that sound like they're imported straight from American talk radio.
None of that is designed to help anyone understand anything. It's there just to wear you down. If they can't win with solid ideas, they try to flood the zone with nonsense until you're too tired to participate.
They'd rather lose the whole country than compromise so the rest of us can actually get something done for once.
And that's what you're seeing now. The loudest corners of the right melting down while the center quietly takes control.
Which brings us full circle, Dave, back to Danielle Smith getting booed in that convention hall.
She tells the room that she wants a sovereign Alberta inside Canada, and they boo.
To me, that's the sound of a small, angry group realizing they don't own the future. They just own that little microphone in an even smaller room.
Because outside that hall, Canadians are making very different choices. They're choosing a prime minister who sees Canada as a leader, not a prop. They're choosing energy policies that look beyond the United States. And they're choosing a middle path that refuses to copy the worst of American politics.
Smith is learning the hard way that if you spend years feeding people the steady diet of outrage, they will never let you calm things down, even when you finally have a chance to actually deliver something. It's the same trap we've seen in the US with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Once you build your base around permanent anger, you can't suddenly ask them to be reasonable.
When you spend years selling outrage, your supporters expect outrage forever. There's no off switch.
Canada's not perfect. Listen, we all know that. Far from it. We've got real problems in housing, affordability, inequality, Indigenous rights, climate, you name it. But the answer is not burning everything down just for ratings. The answer is boring, steady, unglamorous work from people who actually know what they're doing.
So yeah, Danielle Smith got booed by her own party. Now to us, that's not just gossip. It's a snapshot of a country where fringes are getting louder while the majority of Canadians quietly choose something else.
And we're choosing that. If you're watching this as well or listening to this and you see yourself in that middle ground as well, not on Team Red, not on Team Blue, just Team Don't Wreck the Country, please, let us know in the comments. Now, do you think Smith was right to take the deal? And does this feel like a new start of something? Or was it just one weird week in Edmonton?
Either way, we'll keep tracking it because what happens in those convention halls matters a lot less than what happens around kitchen tables across this country.
And if you're still here, you clearly don't hate us. Thank you so much. So why don't you hit that subscribe button and give it a like?
And if you want the extra spicy stuff, the charts, the polls, the unpopular truths, join us on Substack. It's where the grown-up conversations live.
Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, keep those elbows up.
And thanks for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it. We'll see you in the next one tomorrow at 12 o'clock every single day.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Ciao for now.